Today, I will share with you another dose of wisdom and healing. We're going to be talking about internal boundaries and how does it affect your health. I'm going to explain to you what are internal boundaries and what are the different types of boundaries that we can have. We're also going to talk about the relationship between internal boundaries and chronic pain. And I'm going to share with you many different ways that you can set better and healthier boundaries. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a physical therapist, a mind-body coach, and a self-healing specialist. For over 15 years, I guide clients to heal from chronic pain and get their life back. And I would love to help you too. Then let's talk about boundaries. Then first, let's start with explaining what are internal boundaries. Then when I think about boundaries, it's kind of like that invisible line that helps us to discern about our thoughts, our emotional, our actions. And there are two different types of boundaries. They are what we call internal boundaries, and they also are the external boundaries. Then what's the difference? Then when I think about boundaries, I kind of think about your house. Then when you're in your home, you feel safe. You take care of your home, you do things that make pretty, that makes you feel good, that make you feel safe. Then those are what we call the internal boundaries. They are the things that you do for yourself to help you to feel comfortable, healthy, and safe inside of your own body, or to be your own temple, your home. Where external boundaries is kind of similar to a door. When someone knocks on your door, you have the right to tell the person, yes, come in, you're totally welcome. I would love to have you here. Or, no, thank you. Come back another day. Today is not a good time. Or, no, you're not welcome here. I don't know who you are. Then the door of the house starts to establish the boundaries, the external boundaries with the interaction with the world. That's the same thing with our body. We have the internal boundaries, and we also have the external boundaries. That's the things that you do for other people, your interaction with the world. Then when we think about external boundaries, we're thinking about setting the limits of how you interact with the world and how the world can engage with you. And those are the things that we teach people how to treat us. We explain to people what are our limits. We tell no. We describe our preference. We start to communicate and explain to people what are the things that's okay and what are the things they're not. And that's what's going to establish the very healthy external boundaries. When we talk about internal boundaries, on the other hand, it's more what happens inside, like I say, inside of your temple, inside of your home. It's how you treat yourself. That includes your thoughts and your beliefs. When we talk about internal boundaries, it's going to ensure the healthy relationship with yourself. And then how are you prioritize self-care, self-respect, self-compassion? The internal boundaries is acting like a compass. It gives you the guiding information of how do you navigate and interact with yourself and with the external world. And the more clarity you have about your inner boundaries, the easier it is for you to establish external boundaries as well, right? Then when we talk about the idea of honoring our feelings, honoring our needs, our values, what are the things that are very important to us, it's a lot easier for us to establish external boundaries as well. Then, have you ever experienced the tendency of people pleasing? And that's a very common habit. It's a very common habit for people to allow themselves to make someone else's needs a priority. Then when we think about people pleasing, we're not talking about not being nice to someone or not being cared for or not making someone else a priority when it's okay for us to do that. Of course, we want to be loving and caring to everyone. That's really important. However, when we're talking about people pleasing, we're talking about that line being crossed. It's that moment where you stop taking care of yourself and you make someone else a priority. And what happens with people pleasing is we actually forget or not acknowledging our internal boundaries. And when we actually start to acknowledge your internal boundaries and becoming more clear of what are the things that's okay for you, how much can you give it to someone versus how much you actually say no to yourself because you're saying yes to someone else. It's very important for us to start to distinguish the very, very fine line of how much can we give and how much when we give, we actually taking from ourselves. And it's interesting because a lot of people think that we needed to create external boundaries first. And in my experience with my patients, it's very hard to say no to someone when we have all this shame, this guilty, those feelings inside. It's actually a lot more helpful when you establish the internal boundaries first, and then the external boundaries becomes a lot easier. Then I hope you try that because it does make a big difference in your relationship. Then let's talk about the relationship between internal boundaries and chronic pain. A lot of my patients that come with chronic pain does experience challenge with creating boundaries, and it's a very common problem. When you start to experience chronic pain, you may start noticing that you're decreasing your self-care and you start to neglect yourself. And a lot of times what happens is we create that numbness and we don't feel as much because we don't want to feel the pain, and we also don't feel our needs. And that becomes a very blurred line as far as what you actually need versus neglecting yourself. It's really important to start to connecting to those internal boundaries to be able to stop doing the people pleasing, start taking care of yourself, your own needs, make sure that you're not having an internal guilty and not making decisions based on external pressures. You want to make your decisions based on your needs. What is good for you? What's going to help you heal your body? And the more clarity you have on those internal boundaries, the easier it is for you to make those decisions. And the same thing happens with your physical body as well. How many times you're doing an exercise and you don't know what your limits are? You kind of lose track of, okay, how far can I go? How many times can I do this repetition before I hurt myself? If you ever catch yourself doing that, you're going to recognize that it's actually you losing a bit of the internal guidance, the internal boundaries. I see that very common with patients that have chronic pain in relationship with exercise. I actually was working with a patient yesterday, and she was telling me this story that she used to go to a class. The teacher kept telling everybody in the group and say, come on, you guys, you're now 80 years old. You got to push it. You got to push it. And then she ended up hurting herself. And now she lost some of the track of when she should be pushing and not feeling like an older person because that's what the teacher told her. And she kind of like kept some of that belief, or when she's going to go to the other end where she's not pushing herself too hard. And what I was explaining to her yesterday is we don't want to go from the fear where you're not doing enough, but you also don't want to go to the pushing because someone else told you so. You wanted to find that balance, and that balance is where your boundaries are. That balance is what's going to help you to prevent your next injury. That balance is what's going to help you to heal faster. Then start to question yourself when you start having those conflicts. Is this someone else's belief? Is that my belief? Am I honoring my body, or am I honoring someone else's thoughts or ideas or belief of my body? That's really important for us to recognize that, especially if you're dealing with chronic pain. Then let me share with you some different ways for you to create internal boundaries. Okay, then make sure that you take notes, and I'll be very curious to know which one of them you would like to apply. Then one way that's very, very important is validating your emotions. Then when either is on the exercise example that I just gave it to you, or I see a lot of patients also, they are having challenges with a relationship. We needed to go back and connect to ourselves and be really true to ourselves. Like, how are we really feeling about the experience that we are having in life? If you are in a relationship that you are unhealthy, or if you're feeling like you're not being heard, or you're feeling that it's hard for you to be yourself, it is going to be very hard for you to establish external boundaries. Then we needed to go back to validate our feelings and ask ourselves, be very honest. If I'm being 100% honest with myself, without no judgment, how am I really feeling about the circumstance? Either is your relationship, either is your exercise, either your job. What are the things that you have been not paying attention and not validating yourself because someone else told you that you can do that, or someone else shame you for that, or maybe you are shaming yourself for having those feelings? It's really important for us to acknowledge and honor whatever feeling you are having. It's okay. And whatever feeling you have the right to have that feeling. Then make sure that you remind yourself of that. The other thing that's really important for creating internal boundaries is keeping promises to yourself and to others. A lot of times patients ask me, what is the best way to build self-confidence? And it's actually keeping promise to yourself. When you promise yourself to do something and you don't do it, it's like you chip a little bit of that confidence, because now you don't trust yourself anymore. Every time that you do something that you're like, okay, I'm really going to do this, and you actually do it, it's a way for you to build that muscle of self-confidence, that trust on yourself. Is like, yes, I'm capable. Yes, I can. Yes, I did it before. And now you start building up those memories of all the experience that you had, no matter how small it is, that you kept a promise to yourself. They would highly encourage you to start creating those boundaries. If it's something that's not in alignment with you or doesn't feel right, that's okay. Recalculating. That's the idea of forgiving yourself. Oops, that didn't work. Let me try something different. But it's important to acknowledge, and that's one of the things I teach inside of the academy, it's to create realistic goals. Then when you create realistic goals, you can actually keep promise to yourself. You're not breaking that promise every single day and losing that trust that you're actually capable of doing the things that you wanted to do, to accomplish your goals, to reach your dreams, to be being free, because now you start trusting your body. And the flip side is also learning how to forgive yourself. When you do have a moment that you're like, you know what, I try my best, that didn't work. That's okay too. That's what I call the oops. Then when you bring the oops versus a judgment, versus a harsh shame or guilty energy towards yourself, it's a lot easier for you to look at the experience, take your responsibility for your health, and recalculating. It's like a GPS. You're driving somewhere, you're like, okay, I really want to get to that place, but you found a roadblock. Then what you do? Oops, recalculating. Then you're just going to find another way. How can I get there from a different road? It's the same thing when you think about internal boundaries. It's the little dance between what's okay, what is too much, how am I honoring myself, how I'm validating my feelings. And when I do make a mistake or something happen and don't go as planned, oops, recalculating. Then that's going to start building that trust and that self-confidence that you are listening to yourself. A lot of my patients complain they don't feel heard. And I always ask that question to them. Are you listening to yourself? Because when we are not feeling heard by someone else, a lot of times we're not actually listening to ourselves first, right? We got to be able to listen to ourselves first to be able to listen, to be able to expect that someone else was actually listen to us too, because we deserve both. We deserve to be heard from ourselves and from others. They would encourage you to reflect on that question. Have you been listening to yourself lately? Have you been honoring and acknowledging your feelings? Another thing that's really important when we think about internal boundaries is actually learning that it's okay to say no to yourself and take responsibility for every single action that you take That is your job. That's your responsibility. Every single action that you take is going to either improve your health or decline your health. Then you need to be very aware what choices are you making throughout the day. Sometimes you're going to feel like, you know what, today I really want to sleep late and I want to watch TV all night, but your body is telling you that you need to sleep. You didn't sleep very well. You really feel like you need to recharge. That we needed to have those internal boundaries to also say no to ourselves and say, you know what? No, this is not good for me. I do need to go to bed. Then it's also the internal boundaries to say no to ourselves. When something is not good for us, we have to have the responsibility to make the decision to say, no, today I'm not going to eat ice cream because I'm anxious. I'm going to sit with my feelings. I'm going to validate my feelings, and I'm going to ask my body, what do I really want? Because I know that deep inside, the ice cream is not going to make me feel better. Then those are the times they're absolutely okay to say no to yourself. Then I would highly encourage you to start being curious of what areas do you need to say more yes, and what areas we need to say more no. They're both okay as soon as you're listening and validating your feelings. Another piece that's really important for the internal boundaries, it's the awareness of your thoughts. If you catch yourself having some irrational thoughts or negative thoughts, it's important for you to notice, recognize, and again, you can go back to the idea, oops, recalculating and shift and find some different thoughts. But when you bring in the internal boundaries, is also the idea that we can say no to our thoughts. I don't do anxiety anymore. I don't want to keep repeating the same thought to my brain. It's not helping me. It's okay to create some internal dialogue that's going to help you to validate your feelings and also help you to move forward with your health. All of those things are important to create internal boundaries. Then now back to you. What way can you start to incorporate into better health, better and healthier boundaries today? Then go ahead and write on the comments. I'm very curious to hear what are your biggest takeaway for today, and what are some ways that you can start to incorporate some of those tips to create healthier and better boundaries for yourself. And remember, you deserve to feel better. And if you are ready to reclaim your life and heal from chronic pain, join Be Health Academy. Be Health Academy is a science-based program that offers accountability, pain science education, stress management techniques, ways to shift your mindset, increase body awareness, many techniques to release the trauma from the body, and so much more. We also offer interactive workshops and a beautiful and supportive community to guide you on your healing journey. If you are ready to take control of your health and you are looking for an experienced and caring guide, you are in the right place. With the right resources, you have the ability to heal yourself. And you don't have to do it alone. Let me show you the way. Join the Health Academy. I hope to see you soon.